when we look at existence from the point of view of our material consciousness, we tend to treat material things as inanimate objects without consciousness. We attribute to plants, and then to animals, increasing levels of conscious awareness. And with the advent of the mental consciousness, we acknowledge that there is consciousness. René Descartes famously declared, "I think, therefore I am." Yet this view of things is considered to be the opposite of the actual state of affairs. The more deeply scientists explore matter, the more convinced they become that not only is matter actually a condensed form of energy, but that energy itself is a condensed form of consciousness. Consciousness is preeminent, the originator of this entire creation, and thus everything that exists, whether we acknowledge spiritual planes of existence, mental planes, vital planes, or purely physical planes, consists of consciousness. If we look into matter itself, we see a highly organized and developed structure put together with mathematical precision that is clearly an expression of consciousness. The fact that we do not experience dense matter as alive and conscious is due to its consciousness lying outside the frame of our perceptions. This does not mean that it does not have a responsive nature within its own sphere. Rather, that we simply are normally unable to recognize it. Experiments done with plants show not only reactions to their being cut or harmed, but also show a responsiveness to various vibrations we send their way, intentions and feelings that are either supportive or potentially harmful to their nature. If we go further and look at purely material forms, we may start with crystals, which represent one of the more highly organized and responsive forms of matter. The visionary inventor Nikola Tesla, whose insights provide the underpinning for much of our modern civilization, with wireless communication and capturing and transmission of energy, alternating current, and many other seminal inventions of modern life, had this to say about crystals, quote, "In crystal, we have a pure evidence of the existence of a formative life principle, and though we cannot understand the life of a crystal, it is nonetheless a living being." End quote. Numerous experiments on metals show a responsiveness including various forms of fatigue and rejuvenation of strength that result from pressures and supports we provide to those metals. Just because matter is dense and vibrates at frequencies we cannot easily perceive does not mean that matter is not alive and imbued with conscious existence, albeit vastly different from our own experience and ability in that realm. As to a practical application, when we treat material objects as inanimate and without consciousness, we tend to treat them carelessly, and they either fail to function properly or stop functioning entirely, or simply break down. When someone who has an attitude of care and positive goodwill towards material things steps in, we can see that they function better, they last longer, and they even take on a type of radiance noticeable to those with sensitive perception. Metals take on a shine. Entire material creations exude a sense of harmony and functionality. We all know people who have no relation with material objects. They leave metal objects out in the rain and wind up with rusty tools. Computers do not work well for many. They watch their automobiles break down through lack of proper care. They experience rotting and decomposition in material objects through lack of care and attention. On the other hand, we can observe material objects that are cared for and treated with respect. They tend to express a sense of well-being that many people, not just sensitive individuals, can see and experience. Sri Aurobindo observes, quote, "There is a consciousness in each physical thing with which one can communicate. Everything has an individuality of a certain kind, houses, cars, furniture, etc. The ancient peoples knew that, and so they saw a spirit or genius in every physical thing. What you feel about physical things is true. There is a consciousness in them, a life which is not the life and consciousness of man and animal which we know, but still secret and real. That is why we must have a respect for physical things and use them rightly, not misuse and waste, ill-treat or handle with a careless roughness. This feeling of all being consciousness or alive comes when our own physical consciousness, and not the mind only, awakes out of its obscurity and becomes aware of the One in all things, the divine everywhere." End quote. Reference, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, Looking from Within, Chapter 3, Action and Work, page 68.